This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let's start for today's session. So, as already discussed in your invitation, we are going to learn about the threads, all about the threads that is to be learned, as a performance engineer. So let's just start. We already have an enough idea. I mean, we as a performance tester and engineers, we are already learning these terms nowadays. I mean, most of the time we know that issues are with threads blocking and all these things. So let's take a deeper look and what what are the threads and how thread blocking is done and everything else. So this is the agenda that we should be covering for this session. One, threads. You'll understand what is thread and how it's different from a process. What is the advantages of threads over process? The types of threads, a thread life cycle, how a thread is created and how it functions, and what are the different stages of its whenever the thread exists. And then why multi-threading is needed and what is multi-threading, then how to monitor the threads. So till this point we'll have this discussion today. The next 2 points, that how to take thread dumps and analyzing the thread dumps, we will see that tomorrow because it's a little extensive topic and it will take some time. So we will have this topic tomorrow. So till monitoring the threads, we'll go through it today. Okay, so any questions for an agenda or anything else extra you want to include? Okay, so let's go ahead. So thread versus process. So we all know what is a process, right? So whenever we are starting an application or whenever a particular program is running, it can be identified as a process when we see it is running as a process. So, and what is the difference between a thread and a process? So basic is we all know that it's a thread would can be a part of a process, right? So a process can have a multiple threads, right? But when we say there are multiple processes running for a single application, that does not mean these processors are threads of that application, right? So a major difference between a process and thread is that the way they handle the execution and the way they are using the memory spaces. So processes, when we are on a simple process, when it is executed or when it is executing, it is addressing a virtual space which is very private to the process only. So in that virtual space it gives everything like the objects or the context, whatever the process is working on, what the classes and everything, that whatever the memory space is there, that process that would be private. So no other process will be able to access that particular classes, the objects and resources. Okay, in case of threads, when we saying there are the threads, one particular parent process is having 10 threads. So the part is all these threads will share some common resources. Okay, so understand that when we are saying that threads will share some common resources, man, the code, the what code has to be executed, and what are the different types of resources available like objects and this. So threads will share those objects and all those codes, but each and every thread will have its separate stack area. Okay, so local storage will be shared, but the stack area will be separate for each and every thread. Okay, so then another major difference is your process is started with a single thread. Okay, so running a process means it's a single thread of application. So it is called as a primary thread or a primary process. So this primary process cannot be replicated or it cannot create new threads to do its work. Okay, but whenever the threads are concerned, a thread can be created, on multiple. A thread can be divided into multiple sub threads to do its purpose, to do its work. Okay, so this is some basic ideas of threads and process. I think it must be clear to all. So if any questions, please let me know. So just two main things to take understand about threads and process is that process has very much private space, whatever whenever it is working. So virtual address and whatever the memory space it is working on, so process has a very much private space. Another process cannot access that whenever a single process is getting executed. In case of threads, a thread for which process the thread is started. For that, the thread can access the storage area like objects and all the object code. That area is shared, but the stack area is not shared for each and every thread. And a process can have multiple threads. Same way, thread cannot replicate itself, so we need to program to have different kinds of thread doing the same task. Okay, so this is your basic now thread versus process. If any questions, please interrupt me whenever you feel so. Now next is our why do we use threads over processes. So there are basic some 6 advantages I listed out. So first of all is your responsiveness. Okay, so the process, whenever a single application, or we'd say process, is nothing but a program, stacked up all the code in a single program, and when it is executing sequentially. So whenever a process is getting executed, it takes some time to complete the process entire or task, or entire whatever operation it has to do. But when the same process, when it's get divided into the multiple threads, and a single thread is completing its execution and returning its output, in that way you will have the much more faster outcome of your task. Your operation will be completed very fast, because nowadays we are having multiple cores of CPUs, right? So every CPU cycle you will have at least, if you have 4 CPU cores, so every CPU cycle, that means you have uh, four operating windows you get for every cycle, and there are maximum 4 threads can run parallelly, right? So that's why the threads are very responsive. So single process, if you compare the execution of a single process versus same process divided into 4 threads, the threads version will give you the output much more earlier than the process. Okay, that first fact is clear. Second, you have the faster context switch. So now what is context switch is, so whenever a process is executing, and while executing that task, or executing that operation, it needs to switch some of the context from at every CPU cycle. Okay, so what is the context switching means? For some particular process, they need to check particular area. There are some IOs involved. So disk IOs are involved. So this process is checking on the disk IO at one particular CPU cycle. Then it is now moving again to the working on its original program, calculating or doing some other things on the some other memory part. So this takes time for a process, because entire process memory has to be switched, or entire process work has to be switched from one context to another. But in case of threads, because threads are small size, and they have a lower work area, or the lower targeted area, so their context switching time is very less compared to a process. So it gives you a additional benefit of faster processing, so faster context switch. One more thing is that when your context switches are slow, your CPU is overloaded. I mean, you might have heard about, most of the times your CPU is getting spiked up. So that one of the reason is also context switching. So you need to check also the context switching when you are monitoring your CPU. Okay. Then there is a third part, effective utilization of multiprocessor system. So as we already discussed now, so if you have multiple threads in a single process, then we can schedule multiple threads on a multiple processor. So for example, if my system is now having 4 processors, 4 cores, so that means at a time I can execute 4 threads, because that will have a multitasking system implemented. But the process, even though I have 4 cores or 4 cycles, 8 threads, process will not be affected on that. It can work on any one thread or any one process, sorry, on any one core. So that's why today's architectures and today's computation of processing powers are divided in multiple processors, multiple cores. So it gives an additional benefit for having your threads for a single process. Okay, then fourth part is your resource sharing that we also discussed in the previous table. So resources like code what has to be executed, the common data and files that has shared among all the threads. within a process. So for a single process where there are multiple threads, all threads can share the code that has to be executed, the data that is needed to be executed, and the files and other resources for that process to be performed, right? uh, Also note over here that stacks and registers are not shared among the threads. Okay, so each thread has its own stack and registers that we also saw. So with this topic we have also discussed in the JVM architecture class. So each and every thread has a separate stack area, PC registers area, and accumulator. Okay, then there is communication. So when communication between threads is concerned, so it is very easier, because for a single process, a parent process, there are 10 threads and all the threads are sharing the data and sharing the code. So the communication between them, it becomes easier. However, when you consider a process, right, a single process, when it has to communicate with the other process, it gives some kind of difficult. So there are some specific techniques that needs to be followed from process to process. You need to retrieve the handles or system handles that process is using, then you need to communicate that handle to another process to, in order to give and transfer data, or simultaneously coordinate with each other. So that one part is difficult for processes, but in threads, as they are sharing the same common data and code and everything, so communication is easy. Then the last benefit is your enhanced throughput of the system, right? Because we already know, using threads you have faster context switch, your responsiveness is increased. So it is automatically you are ought to get the throughput high. So whenever you are dividing a simple task in multiple threads, and each thread is function considered as a one job, so using the multiprocessor technique, all the jobs can be completed per unit. It is increased. So per CPU cycle, if I have 4 cores of CPU, so per CPU cycle I can have 4 threads executed in a single cycle, right? So that increases my capacity of getting the throughput out of the system. Okay, so these are some basic advantages of your threads or processes. Now come to the types of threads. So there are basic two types of threads. One is your user level thread, second is your kernel level thread, right? So the threads that we usually see, or usually we monitor using JVMs and all these things. So we saw that over there are only two threads, like daemon threads and application threads. So both of these daemon and application threads, those falls under the user level thread. Okay, because those are running on the JVM, and those threads are uh, working separately. So we will discuss it when we have to do this. We have to read the thread dump and all these things. So as of now, just keep in mind that there are main two types. One is your user level, another user kernel level. So what is the difference between both of them? So user, as name suggests, user level thread, it is implemented by users. So you are writing a program or writing a code and you are creating a thread. So that is your user thread. Whatever you are trying to do using application, that is your user level thread. Second, and kernel level thread, it is implemented by OS, right? So when we are saying a kernel level thread, that means the thread has to do something with kernel, right? So that it is implemented by OS. So user level thread has not any recognition at OS level, right? So the operating system will not know which threads are running at application level and what are the users, which threads are users have created. So operating system doesn't has to take care of these things, and it doesn't bother which are the threads are running on my on operating system. But the kernel threads, which are very well recognized by OS, because OS is the one who is implementing these threads, right? Other part is user thread implementation is very easy, but writing a kernel thread is very complicated. You can consider a kernel thread like a driver program, right? Whenever you're plugging in your mouse, or whenever you're plugging in your headphones, right, which requires a driver. So writing a driver program is like writing a thread, kernel thread. Okay, so in user level thread context, which time is less, because you are operating on one process and shared area. But in the kernel level thread, the context which time is more, because it involves hardware, right? It involves the computer program to go through the kernel and access to the hardware and make the changes over there. So that's why the context switching time is more in the kernel level thread. Okay, so user level thread can perform blocking operation, then entire process will be blocked. So if the application process has user threads running and the threads is blocked, right? So the entire process will be blocked for on that particular resource. But in the kernel level thread, if you are blocking operation, then another thread can continue execution. That means because it is it is depending on the hardware and how you are changing the hardware. Even though one particular thread is locked on the resource or locked on the thread, you can continue the execution. Okay, so what are the basic examples? So Java thread is your user level thread, and kernel level thread you can say Windows, Solaris. These operating systems are your kernel level threads. Okay, so this is clear now. Anyhow, we will not be, whenever we are doing engineering part, or whenever you are we are discussing the testing and dumping threads and all these things, so we will be very much we will be very much concentrating on the user level threads. Kernel level threads will not be in picture, because most of the time we are not tuning the OS, but the applications, or we are tuning the performance of application, right, which is running over the OS, right? So whatever there is in OS, we are not touching anything, because it's a it's the job of the developers of the OS, right? So whatever the platform we are using, like Windows Server or Linux Server, so it's job of Windows Server to maintain the performance of the application, right? So whatever the Okay, I think it is established now. Sorry. Okay, so I was talking about this. We will be discussing, I know whatever threads or the purpose of threads. We will be discussing that all threads will be under user level threads. Okay, and there will be no kernel threads we are discussing. Just go to the next level. Yes, so user thread and application level thread means same, but we will discuss that how there are some daemon threads are there, right? So we will again discuss this topic again when we are having the thread dump session and monitoring the threads. Okay, so user level and application threads are same, but the only difference between these threads is that there are some threads which are created by application that we call application threads, and there are some threads that are created by your platform on which your application is running. So for example, JVM. So if there are some JVM created threads are there, so those threads we call as a daemon thread. Okay, so we will discuss those up when we are at the right topic. Okay, now so we just understood that what is the thread, what are the different types of threads, how thread is different with from a process and how it is performing fastly. So there is one more word you might have heard about, like multi-threading, right? And why, what is multi-threading, is there multi-threading enabled, like this kind of words. So what is multi-threading specifically? So we all know that Java is your multi-threaded programming language. Okay, what do you mean by multi-threading? You can have a different sections or different threads running a single program using Java. Okay, so how does multi-threaded program run? So it contains one or more or two or more parts that can run concurrently, and each part can handle a different task at the same time, right? So it uses it uses optimal resources, and I'm very sure you might have heard about this Okay, so now again I think it is reestablished. So next time I think I will connect to the phone call, because now I don't think why it is giving some audio problems. Network quality seems fair, estimated quality fair. Okay, so guys, please let me know, in any case or in middle of anything, if you don't hear my voice, let me know, because we are recording this session, and we don't want other audience to get miss concepted data or some missing parts of audio. So please let me know whenever that audio stops coming. So what we were discussing about was our multi-threading, right? So why this multi-threading is done and how it is working. So multi-threading is nothing but we can imagine of multitasking of an application where single task is given to the single thread. Each individual thread is handling some different task. So within a single CPU cycle, all the threads can run parallelly and they can accomplish whatever the tasks that are given. Okay, so we already know the advantages of multi-threading, like threads operates faster than processes. So there are four basic reasons that, and we already seen that in the previous slides. Like creating a thread is very easy, it's faster. Context switching between threads is also faster. Threads can be terminated also easily, and the communication between two threads is also faster. So that is the reason multi-threading works, and multi-threading also yields you the optimal performance from the application. Okay, so now next part, so this is important part, so where thread life cycle. So we have discussed everything about that what is thread, how it's different from process, what is multi-threading, and how why we do that multi-threading. So now let's discuss about the thread life cycle. So whenever a thread is created and whenever a thread is executed and when it's completed, so what are the different stages it goes through, right? So this is the diagram which is representing your a complete thread life cycle. So okay, so you can see at the left side, whenever a thread is started, so you say a new thread. Whenever a new thread is started, it goes to the runnable state first. Okay, so when first it starts, then it's go to the runnable state. Now what is runnable state is, so runnable state means a thread is pretty much capable of executing the operation at this stage. Okay, so it is capable of executing the operation. So it let the thread will let know the upper threads or upper processes that this I am runnable now, I am able to execute the application, and it will either wait for a CPU cycle or either wait for a resource to get locked in. Okay, so it is either waiting for a locking or either waiting for a resources. Once that is done, it come to the running state. Okay, so you can say runnable, after runnable it is going to the running state. So that means whenever thread is running, that means it is actually processing, it is working on the locked resource or whatever the operation it has to perform. Okay, now from the running stage there can be two possibilities, right? Either the thread can directly go to the dead state after ending the execution of its whatever the task it has been assigned. After ending this task, it can go to the dead state, or it can wait for another some time for locking resources or for switching the context, whatever that may be, according to the operation that has been assigned to the thread. Okay, so there can be two stages. Either thread can go to the dead from running, or it can go to the waiting state. Okay, now after when it is coming to the dead state, that is this is the final state of your thread. It is dead means the thread is vanished, its life cycle is completed. So same way, whenever a new thread is created, it can also go to the runnable, or it can also directly go to the dead. So now why, you will ask why this new thread will go to the dead. So some of the times you might have heard about it, or you might have seen this kind of things. So some of the times, what application does is it creates some unnecessary threads, or it some reserves some threads for application purpose to work, to extend your application working. But most of the time, this reserve threads will not come into the picture, or these reserve threads will not work. Okay, so in that case, then this new thread will be automatically dead. One example I can give you right away is the JMeter. So if you have used JMeter, and you see, whenever this JMeter test plan, we create the test plan, we have one check option over there. Whenever we are particularly giving the threads, right, how many threads are running, and what is the loop count. So under the below that we have one checkbox which particularly says delay the thread creation until needed, right? So that means do not create the threads until it is needed. Okay, so that means you do not previously, or you do not create the threads in advance which has to be executed, and then execute it when available, but so delay this creation if it's unless it is needed, right? So that is, this is how the thread life cycle works. And one more important thing I want to let you know, guys. So whenever we take a thread dump, or whenever you are taking a thread dump, and when whenever you are observing the thread status, so thread statuses, you will never see this running. Okay, so you will never see this running part in your thread dump. Okay, because for a thread dump it will be only it will be only start, it will be only runnable, waiting for lock, or locked. These are the only four types, or these are the only four things, four statuses you will see in a thread dump. You will never see a running status for a thread in a thread dump. Okay, why we will see that in when we take a thread dump? Okay, because runnable means a thread is capable of executing. So where or when we say a thread is runnable, then we need to check if it has acquired the lock. If it has acquired the lock, that means this is running. Okay, so we will never see this running status in the thread dump. Okay, now go to the next stages. So this is just the explanation of what we have just discussed. So new is done, a new thread is beginning its life, and it remains in the state until the program starts the thread. It is also referred as a born thread. Then runnable, after a newly born thread it is started, the thread becomes runnable. A thread in this state is considered to be executing its task. Okay, then comes waiting. So threads are waiting for either changing the state or requiring the lock. Okay, then you have timed waiting, a runnable thread that can either time waiting state for a specified interval of time, then it can enter the time waiting state. Sorry. So what is the time waiting state? This state is specifically by a program. Timed waiting means a program already defined that thread. So for example, if within 5 seconds or within 50 seconds, if you do not acquire this lock, go to the exit or dead, be dead, like that. Then the last part is terminated, or the thread is dead. So runnable threads enter to the terminated state when it completes its task or its operation. Okay, so these are this operation, that this life cycle we already discussed now. Okay, now the next part, so that how to monitor the threads. Okay, so we all know for all the Linux machines, for the all the machines on where all the operating system where we are having JVMs running and all these things. So we all know that we are using tools like JVisual VM, JConsole, and JMC to monitor, right? So if you have to monitor the threads using command line, you use the JStack command. Okay, but it is a tedious job, because using a JStack command you need to also provide the thread ID or process ID to this JStack, and it will print the stack of that particular thread. Okay, and it is also not a continuous thread monitoring, or it will not give you the continuous weave. You again need to check again, and you again need to re-enter that command, so like that. But JConsole or JVisual VM, which at the bottom line they use the same command in their implementation, but it gives you some good results, some good visual impacts that can be understood very properly. So for Windows operating system, there is one more thing. So most of the time we know everything about monitoring threads and all that. We use JVisual VM, JConsole, JMC, but for the Windows OS, what for the Windows operating system, when an application is in a Windows application that you want to monitor. Okay, so for that purpose we have in Microsoft only we have Process Explorer. Okay, let's just see if I can show you directly. So in the task manager of our Windows operating system, we can see the threads, number of threads for any application, but we cannot see the state and what this particular thread is doing. So for example, now if I go over here, So now here I cannot see threads. I just need to enable this column. Okay, so it's already grouped. I can show you an example of Google Chrome. Over here, there are total 18 subthreads for Google Chrome. So one is your console windows, and these are the different under Google Chrome. Because you can see this, these are the different 18 subthreads. So 18 processes you can say for Windows. Now in Windows implementation, we can see this one main thread Google Chrome, and under Google Chrome there are 18 sub processes. So each of every one process is having one thread, okay, or multiple threads. So we are not able to see over here. So how we can see that is, let me just go to the, don't know why it is not in the Windows 10. So not in the performance tab. Okay, so there is one particular software available on from the Microsoft, which is called Process Explorer. Okay, so I'll just quickly show you how it is done. Okay, it's downloaded. Okay, so as soon as I clicked on this application, you can see now I'm able to see everything on my system. I just need to maximize it, and let's just again check for the Chrome. Mm, okay, so it will be under explorer.exe. Yeah, this is the Chrome. So you can see these are the processes. Okay, so though it appears like a stack of threads under parent process chrome.exe, but these are again each and every one is processes. So in every process there are some threads which are working at the background. So how can I view it? I just need to double click this chrome.exe, and I can see, you can see this threads tab. Okay, it is asking me to down again and debugging to. Um, DBG. Okay, till this get downloads, I let me just show you. I just, even if I just click OK, it will show me the threads. Okay, so you can see this, there are total 8 threads, 7 threads running for this particular process. Okay, we have this process ID 18024. Okay, so though it appears like there are different threads, but these are not threads. In Windows operating system, you have the multiple processes running under chrome.exe. There are different processes running, and if you can see over here, for each and every thread, if I just click on the stack button, I'll get the stack trace of this thread. Okay, so I get the information that when this thread has started, at which address it has started. So this 0x2d163, it is nothing but your address, virtual address where this thread has started. Okay, and then this is the type, type of implementation it is running. So same way you can see the different threads. Now let's click on this one, and if you double click it, you see in the threads tab it has 13 threads. Okay, so this is a parent process. Okay, and it is running 13 threads. So you can even if you can just hover on this process, you see what is this process doing. So for example, now I have just hover the mouse arrow on this process, and I can see this trusted code migrations. So whatever particular this particular process is doing this thing, and for that it has multiple threads running, right? So for example, this has some type utility, and it is running some service sandbox network. But for this, and it for doing that task, it has some subdivided threads, like 15 threads. Okay, so this is the way you do this monitoring on your Windows application or on your Windows machine. And the monitoring part for JVisual VM and the J console, that we will see that tomorrow, because tomorrow we have to do this. We have to take a thread dump, and we have to understand the different methods or different types how we can take thread dump in, and how to analyze these thread dumps. Okay, so as of now, this is our today's session. So this concludes today's session. Tomorrow we will see about how you are taking a thread dumps. So traditional way, using command line, and also using the tools. Okay, and analyzing the thread dump. So these two things we will see in detail tomorrow. So please attend tomorrow's session, because it would be very important, and whatever your questions are, that can be answered at the same time. So please attend this session tomorrow. Apart from this, anything else you want to address, or anything else you want to understand? So I also have one more thing I missed to say this, guys. I have one sample Java program, which emulates the deadlock thread. Okay, so we all know that deadlocking, how deadlocks done. Okay, so let me just run that program. I have downloaded it. Okay, so this is the program. Let's show you this program gets deadlocked. So let me just compile first. Java. Hmm. JDK is not there into this path. Runtime. Okay, Java path is there. So nowadays, new operating systems which are coming, they are just giving the JRE path in your path variable. So because JRE is which is already only required to execute the operation. So after, Apart from that, they are not giving anything else. Okay, so Java home is there, right? So let me just quickly give the path of JDK. So we should be able to run these commands. Okay. Okay, so this is the JDK path. Now it is updated. Okay, close, close. Now I just have to restart this thing. CMD path. Okay, I see the Java path. Okay. So I'm just compiling this Java program, and now we'll just run. Okay. So now you can see it is giving the output like thread 2 holding lock 2, thread 1 holding lock 1, thread 2 waiting for lock 1, waiting for lock 2. Okay, so this both these threads are in a deadlock state, right? Because one thread is waiting for now lock 1, which is actually acquired by thread 1, right? So I'll show you this code in tomorrow's session before we start, so we will be able to understand how these deadlocks happen, and how do we identify in the thread dumps. I need to get some sample thread dumps for deadlock threads to show you guys how you identify the deadlock threads. Okay. So as of now, yes, this is a sample program which is just showing that how a deadlock is happening. So I just printed out the messages. Let me show you the actual code. Uh, Now you can see this. This is simple one public class this thread, and under this class I'm creating these two threads. So T1 and T2. Okay, so thread demo 1, thread demo 2. So what has been done is, so there are lock 1 and lock 2. These are the two objects. Okay, lock 1 and lock 2. So what I've done is that, so first I've started T1. Thread 1 started and it is acquiring the lock on T1. Then object 1. Uh, okay, then the T2 started, and what is done in this, you can see is the thread demo 1. So when thread demo 1 is when this T1 is started, it is acquiring the lock 2. See, so it is checking, it is using this object lock 2, the first thread, and the second thread, when it is started, it is using this, it is acquiring this lock 1. And what I've done is, here in try catch, I've written a synchronized block for lock 2. Okay, so I mean, once it is holding the lock 1, but now it is waiting for the lock 2, right? So now it is waiting for the lock 2. Same way, the thread 2, it is holding the lock 2, but now it is waiting for the lock 1. Okay, same thing you can see in this window. These are the commands. So thread 2 is holding lock 2 and thread 1 is holding lock 1, but thread 2 again it is waiting for lock 1 and thread 1 is waiting for the lock 2. So in interdependent, these are independent threads. Sorry, interdependent threads. So where they are waiting for each other to release the locks and acquire the locks that they have already on their own. So this is the way this deadlocks take place. So there are some concepts of circular deadlocks also. I will try to check if we have some examples or some thread dumps which can show this kind of deadlocks. Okay, so this is just for your information purpose, and this is for today's session. So please let me know if you have any questions as of now, or we can conclude the class. So Chandra and Himanshu, only two you have joined. So let me know if you have questions, or we can conclude the class. Okay, so I get no questions. So this is for today's class. Tomorrow would be more interesting part. So we will be taking thread dumps of live applications. So we already have this JPEG store, right, configured in some previous sessions. So we will take thread dumps of this application running, and we will try to analyze the thread dumps. Okay, we will see how this what are the different types of stack trace is coming in the thread dump. Okay, so we'll conclude the today's session. Bye bye. See you guys tomorrow. And please post me if you know by going to the recording or by going to the recording, if you feel some part is not clear or some questions arises on your mind. Please feel free to ask anytime. You can reach me over WhatsApp, or you can reach me over an email. So please feel free to revert. Okay, so signing off this meeting now.